3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And they're
How
all
many
in
people
my
in the
philosophy class that's next,
So which means they're not going to be there.
But there's only like 9 of us. So there's gonna be like
Gonna be
2
sad.
people. Me
And
and
Megan?
me and her brother.
Yeah, because I don't think Megan's going.
Alright, okay, let's start, guys.
Okay, so chapter 11, why are women paid less? The increase of women in the workforce. Only 1/3, which is about 33% of working age women were in the workforce in
Slow down,
1950.
slow down.
Okay, I'm
Slow
sorry.
down.
But now, almost 60% of working age women are in the paid workforce. Also, the labor force participation rate for men has changed from 86 to 70%. Therefore, almost half the paid working field is occupied by women. Also, the type of work women are doing has become more diverse.
I think. Now we're going to talk about the wages of men versus women. And for every dollar a man makes, a woman gets 80 cents of that. And for 70% of employers, most of their costs come from labor costs. So if they would hire all women at that lower rate, they could triple their profits. And yeah. We have a video just to like sum up the wage gap. Basically. Just copy and paste it. There we go. And this is off of the U.S. Department of Labor website that when I Googled the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, it came up with that website.
I've worked for you a long time and I'm paid less than Robin. Same job, same employer means equal pay for men and women.
For example, a male physician is paid $90 per hour on average. And if you subtract 20% from that, the average female physician would get about $72 an hour. And a male high school teacher makes around $46,988 a year. And if you subtract 20% from that, a female high school teacher would make around $37,590.40 a year.
Hold on a second, let me ask you this. So, did you guys come up with this figure from the internet, or you just subtract 20% out of that?
The figures of we got the average pay from the internet.
The $90 per hour and the $72 per hour, did you get those from
The
the internet?
72 is calculated.
And
Huh?
72
The 72
was
is calculated from
Yeah,
the.
that-
But also, instead of doing all that, you could just multiply it by the 80 by like 80% by 0.80.
Yeah, that's 72 there is not, it's not accurate, it's not a proper way to do that. But go ahead, yeah.
Well, okay. The question is it discrimination? And the gender gap is it caused by discrimination? And you could say yes, it is, because when all the factors like education, age, marital status, and all that are held constant, there is a gap that is unexplained, like nationwide. And when men are paid more than women who have men are paid 10% more than women who have the same factors, and it's probably because of something they call the old boy network. and that comes from like, say a man and a woman is applying for a position, and the Oh Boy Network basically says that the man is more likely to get the job because it's like, I don't know, it's a man. It's discrimination.
You could also say that it's not discrimination, because discrimination in the workforce against women and ethnic minorities has been illegal for a while. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the Office of Federal Contract Compliance enforce that law. They should not miss this gender gap. Truly, if the factors above are kept constant, the individual gender gap for firms are little to none. This shows that not all firms show discrimination when hiring, but that the gap that is there comes from other reasons, like having children, occupational choice, and hours that are worked. Another video.
It's the story of women across this country still earning just 78 cents for every dollar men earn. In this economy, when so many folks are already working harder for less and struggling to get by, the last thing they can afford is losing part of each month's paycheck to simple and plain discrimination.
Women make 77 cents on a man's dollar on average. That's comparing all full-time women in the economy with all full-time men in the economy. But women tend to go in and out of the labor force. They choose different professions. They choose different occupations. Using that 77-cent number makes as much sense as comparing nurses to doctors, which is not a good comparison. If you look at two first-year associates in law firms, a man and a woman, they make exactly the same. Otherwise, they could sue that law firm. If you look at two first-year cashiers in supermarkets, they make about the same. If you look at two people, male and female, in almost any job for which they've been working the same amount of time, they make the same amount of money, because otherwise they could sue for discrimination. What happens is, if women on average choose more family flexible jobs, and full-time women work about 12% fewer hours than full-time men, then they make less. But that's just an average, not a job-specific comparison.
That lady there.
There are many more women reaching the
Hold
top.
a second. This lady there gave a talk here at UNCP. We school business invited her here. He gave a talk on the environmental economics. I think it's last semester, not this semester. Yeah, and yeah, we'll have her. Okay.
There were a decade or 2 decades ago, but it's nowhere near 50-50. It's not even 25-75. And that's because about 80% of women have children at some point in their lives, and they like to take time to look after them, to spend time with them. And if you look at the 100 best jobs for women in any women's magazine, it's always the jobs that are flexible. It's not the inflexible jobs. And it's just unfortunate that inflexible jobs pay more than do flexible jobs. And these inflexible jobs with the travel and the hours, they get you on the CEO track. I think it's not a matter of discrimination, it's a matter of negotiation, and be willing to say, I'm going to leave this job, I'm going to go to this higher paying job. We have had female secretaries of state, we have women CEOs, we have women who've run for president. In essence, I think women have achieved it and they have it all.
What's good one? This is good.
Okay. So now we're gonna go more in detail about what the lady was saying. So the question is, how much do children really cost? And when a woman has a child, like soon before she has her first child, her pay begins to drop, and it continues to drop until the child is old enough to be out of the home, so around like 20 or so. And the same system, which was studied in Britain, shows that a woman, basically her pay starts to decline when she has her first child, and it continues to decline, but once it increases again once the first child is 20 or so. But even then, they still only gain about 1/3 back from what they lost. And in the book, it was saying that a woman who doesn't have a child versus a woman who has a child, you can see I think it was like 1 million or something like that, like a 1 million gap in their pay. And so the decline in earnings they call that the mommy track, and is basically saying that the decline of pay is because of the decline of responsibilities and hours, and or changing jobs or taking a job with more elasticity.
Does career choice matter? Career choice matters because the pay depends on the job requirements and demands. In most cases, men are more likely to do the more dangerous jobs like construction, firefighting, and being a police officer. These types of jobs pay more because the employer is paying the compensating differential, which is extra income for assuming risk of injury or even death. That extra pay only balances the cost of risks, and once the risks are calculated and the earnings of the employees are about the same of a less dangerous job, although it is still taken into consideration, making the earnings look much higher for the employees.
How many hours will you get? So basically this goes back to the mommy track somewhat. And also men are more likely to have more than 50 hours a week, and men are more likely to have a full-time position. So basically this goes back to the mommy track because women, when they have children, they tend to take a part-time job or a less demanding job so they can have time with their children. And so the difference in hours could be a result of the woman's choice because she has the children, or it could be discrimination. For example, some high-paying blue-collar jobs have a history of not liking women in the higher-paying positions and not giving them those opportunities. And but either way, now, if a woman, for the women who are in the higher paying positions, it's so scarce that even if they were given an opportunity and paid the same amount, it would just it would only hurt the average for women because it would lower their.
Okay, now time for the discussion questions. Yay. Okay, this is where I said you might want a calculator.
Are there any questions before we go to that?
Questions, comments? Yes, Blaine.
It was really interesting. I really liked that video, the second one that you guys played, because like the book kind of made it seem like, yes, there's definitely discrimination, and then the video kind of showed that maybe there's not as much discrimination as as the book kind of slammed it on you. So that was really neat.
And that tacking on to what he said there, I had to write a paper on poverty, and believe it or not, this actually got brought up in the why people can't get out of poverty, and it kind of focused on the families who don't have a man in their life, and like it's the single woman raising her family. And we were talking about that and how because of this pay difference, that's part of the reason why we can't get out of poverty. But like I said, when you put it in perspective like this, it kind of makes sense, because if you got kids, you need to be able to have a job that has hours that are easily worked around, so you can be with your kids. And it's not only women that have this problem, like the thing said too. Like you see it amongst like races and ages and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I don't think it's discrimination. I think it is just the different job fields that you go in, because you have a lot more women nurses than you do, say, male nurses. And then the same thing with doctors, but vice versa. And I feel like when you do like equate children in or whatever, then mothers have more responsibility. I don't feel like it's shared between a man and a woman. I think the woman is the one to primarily do that. Not that you know there aren't fathers and that fathers aren't fathers. I just feel they're not on the same level of like providing
I
and
think I get what you're
caring.
saying. Like you go back to the whole typical: the man is the breadwinner and the woman takes care of the kids in the house.
And even though we don't live in that time and age where a girl has to, you know, stand behind a guy or whatever that nonsense, but I still think that a woman is the one that's taking care of
the
the kids.
nurturer.
Yeah.
Sierra.
I mean, that's very stereotypical because my dad raised me. My mom was the one that worked. So, like, that is kind of like, I guess it is sometimes how it is, but, like, in this day and age, I feel like could be either way. Because maybe the dad couldn't find a job and the mom could find a job, or the mom can't find a job and the dad can, so it just depends on who really can find a job at the time. It's not about who cares more, like, who's able to care more, like, because a dad can be just as well, raise a kid just as well as a mom can.
Right, and I think that goes back to the choice factor. Like, if there's a family, like your family, like your dad chose to be like the more, I don't know the word.
He was the
but
nurturer,
you know what I'm
and
saying.
your mom
Yeah, my mom
Your
worked.
mom was like, yeah.
Well, that's because my dad couldn't find a job at the time.
Right.
Because whatever he was doing wasn't available.
Yeah, I think the point of the article is not, it's that it can be that way. The problem is not that employers are stopping it from being that way, like where the man would stay home and the woman would work. But like they're saying that's not the issue. It's if there is a difference, it's that women still choose to take care of their children. Women could go out and work, but they're not forced to stay home anymore. They can get good jobs. They just generally choose not to.
I don't think it's discrimination if you choose it. I think that's more along the lines of like you settling.
Right.
But I'm not discriminating against you, or employers aren't discriminating against you. You just choose that life.
You right?
You ready for this first question? Okay. Suppose an employer offers a base wage of $20 per hour for the first 40 hours of work each week and overtime pay of $30 per hour for any hours beyond 40 per week. The employer allows workers to choose their own hours of work. Suppose employee A chooses to work 36 hours per week and employee B chooses to work 42 hours per week. Compute the average weekly earnings for employees A and B and the earnings gap in percentage terms between them. In your view, does this observed earnings gap constitute discrimination? Justify your conclusion.
Okay, well, I don't have a calculator, so
It's
employee A
Wanna go
has
do the
720 and B has
60.
860.
We're going to work it out on the board too, just
Yeah, okay.
just for a little bit more
So
clarification.
that's
So who do you guys think? Let's go with that first. Who do you think will make more?
the
guy that works
in-
Be the one that
Everybody
makes
says
more
okay.
hours.
Like, do you think that would be discrimination though?
No.
Because he chose to work that many
That's
hours.
20 times
That's
36.
He chooses 36 hours, right?
And then the second one would be 20 times 40 plus. Plus 6.
That's like saying, like, so me and him got a job, worked the same place, but for whatever reason I work like, I work like the 36 and he works the 42. Maybe because it's in our schedules we can work like that, and then it's like they're saying they're discriminating
40 times
against
20
me
is 800.
because I work less.
40 times
That's
20.
not discrimination. You're just working less.
Get my calculator, I think. Yes, Anthony.
It's kind of like if you spend more or less time working on a paper, you're going to get a higher or lower grade depending on how much time you spent on it.
36 times
Right,
27,
and if
20
you don't spend a lot of time on it and you
Yeah,
get
and
a
then
bad grade,
2
it's
times
not
30
discrimination.
is 60.
So they get earnings of 800.
Yeah, and then the
No,
percentage.
but I'm doing that. It's
Yeah.
gonna be done by tomorrow. And I'm
So, basically, how do you do that?
but I've been doing my research there. I just haven't wrote it.
I thought it would be gap. I think for the gap, you would subtract that, right?
How long is yours?
Would you subtract it or like?
You would subtract this and then add it together and divide the subtracted number.
Is
by
there
the
anyone
added
saying
together
that it's good discrimination? Okay, so basically what it is, this is called self-selection. And it is a concept in information, asymmetric information, problem. So for example, UNCP is looking for faculty, to hire, okay? And we do not know how productive this faculty is. We do not know the preference of this faculty. So we offer this faculty two options in the contract. Okay, one option, you finish one project within a year and you make $70,000. Okay, and the second option is, and you make two projects within a year, and you make you finish two projects in a year, and you make $90,000. Okay, but both options are offered to this faculty candidate. Okay, and this candidate decide which contract to take. Okay, because the candidate knows how productive he or she is, and they know how much they can finish. So they're going to self-select themselves into one of the options. So by doing this, we alleviate the problem of information symmetry. What's information symmetry here? The information symmetry here is the productivity of this candidate is unknown to the employer. And because of that information symmetry, that creates a problem in the market. So one of the solutions, one of the the tool is we call it screening or self-selection. So basically what they use here is a self-selection, a screening device. Okay, they give you these two options, either you're a girl or boy, you can choose any one of them, you can choose work time. But by offering this option, and then the more they're better aware of the preference or productivity of this potential employee. Okay, so that's actually what is this about.
Because the only way that would make this discrimination is if, like they said, okay, you being the guy, you get $20 if you work 40, and then you can go over 30. But if you're a woman and you go over 40, you're just going to still get paid 20.
Yeah.
That's when there's a pay less.
That's right. If one option is only offered to a specific candidate, and then that will be a discrimination.
Okay, so can we do the gap, or do you not want to do that?
They don't worry about it.
Okay.
That's not as important, I don't think.
Alrighty. Move on to number 2. A recent British study found that married men earned more than unmarried men, but only if their wives did not have full-time paid employment. Suggest an explanation for this finding. Hint, in which case is a man more likely to share in the household responsibilities, including childcare?
Okay, so if their wife has a full-time job, then the responsibility of everything, including the kids, is going to have to fall back on both parents. Not that it doesn't if you don't have a full job, but like sometimes the wife's not going to be able to take off. Like sometimes it's going to have to be you if your child gets sick or something. But like if your wife doesn't have a job, then like what else does she have to do? You know what I'm saying? So like if they do, I'm not saying like that, but like if they do get sick, then she can go get them. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have to do stuff like that. So that's why I feel like that would be the case.
So I want to ask you guys, so from this question and also the things discussed in this chapter, what do you think the author wants you to take from this chapter, from reading this? Beyond, yeah.
I think that there's he kind of wants you to understand that there's a trade-off. Because if you're going to, accept the responsibility of a full-time job, or, you have the choice to make whatever job you know, get the degree and everything, you have to figure out what the trade-off is. You know, like I'm gonna put more effort into, you know, getting a higher paid job, but I'm not gonna be able to take care of my kids if I'm a woman or a man. So I feel like there's a lot of like trade-offs going on economically.
Yes, obtaining cost.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually was. I was about to say the word he was looking for was opportunity cost. Whereas whenever like, as this question posed, whenever it's all on one individual to make the money, they're going to have to choose the more inflexible, higher paid job. But whenever it's a combination of the two, then they can choose two flexible jobs because there's two incomes coming in.
Okay, good. Others? There is a very key concept underneath this story here, okay? It is about the causal relationship. And they use this women's pay less story to tell you how difficult to identify the causal relationship. You know, you can get these figures, get data, and on the surface it looks like, oh, you know, the married men earn more, okay? But underneath, there's many reasons to contribute that. And the study of economy is to peel off the layers of the irrelevant factor, and then nail down what's the relevant one. And it's a very difficult job, you know. So what this chapter really telling you is, do not just say without hesitation there is a causal relationship between one variable, one thing, and another thing, because there's a lot of depth within any kind of relationship, and even the data can be misleading. Yeah, and that is the job of economics, you know. And they can give you data. Economists can spend a year just dig, eventually find this relationship. Yeah. So just be careful. You know, you may say a politician says, okay, you know, our pay gap is this big in this sector. This that. Don't be misled by that, because there's just much more behind that. Yeah. So that's really, I think, what this chapter wants you to take home. You know. Yeah.
Any more about this?
So would that be like an example of discrimination?
I don't think so. I don't think it would be, because it's saying, I think that it's saying,
they say
as
the
like
difference.
a
Yeah, the difference. I'm sorry. The difference of the pay between married men and the unmarried men is partially due to whether their wives do have a full-time job or not. It's partially due to that. Yeah.
Question number 3. Women who own their own businesses earn net profits that are only half as large as the net profits earned by men who own their own businesses. First, consider why women would be willing to accept lower profits. Could this reflect poorer options as women as employees? Alternatively, could it reflect other attributes of self-employment that women might find more advantages than men do? Then think about why women earn lower profits. Is this evidence of discrimination? If so, by whom? If not, what else might account for the lower profits?
Well, in the video that we watched earlier, it said that women work 12% fewer hours than men. So if they were working less, then they wouldn't have as much time to either make the product or sell it or whatever their business does. So they wouldn't be able to make as much as men who would be working more. Also, they would want, where it said 80% of women have children, they would need a more flexible schedule, the average woman would, than a man that's unmarried. So they wouldn't be able to work as much as well.
I don't really think it's evidence of discrimination, because like in the video they were talking about how, like, you know, there's women CEOs and there's women politicians and there's women this and there's women that, And so like there's I can't think that like it's they're making less profit. I think it said IBM was one of the like women CEOs and stuff like that. So it just kind of shows that like sure they might not be making as much for other reasons, but I don't think it's because they're a woman.
I think it just, when you consider women who are own businesses, they probably own businesses in fields that don't have as many profits. They don't have as much risk, and those industries would be more flexible than self-employed men. I think it talks about in the chapter, it's just about the fields that they choose. It might not even be the hour. They might be working just as many hours, but they might have chosen a lesser profit field.
Yeah. So what kind of, I was having, I was gonna ask you that actually. What do you think kind of business that women more likely to own?
A bakery.
Yeah, bakeries, daycares, and like boutiques.
That's what I was
Yeah.
saying.
It's like all the women I know in like where I'm from, like they own boutiques, and like the men own like small restaurants like diners and places like that. I mean, everybody's going to want to go buy food, but not everybody can afford these really high-priced boutique clothing.
Yeah, and also the housing development construction company,
Right.
owned more likely, and they're
Contractors.
very profitable business, more likely owned by men.
Right.
But there's only one, I think, industry that I think the difference between man and woman becomes smaller and smaller, but it's still, I think it's men take it over more. It's in the IT industry. I think, in the past it has been majority men, but I think more and more women are going into that IT industry, and having their own business, related to the IT stuff. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Question 4. Why do you think we have laws that prohibit discrimination in pay based on gender or race, but permit employees to discriminate in pay based on education or experience?
Anthony.
Because you can't choose your gender or race like from birth. Like you can choose though if you tried or not for your education, or if you cared enough to try to better yourself. You can't help that you're white or Hispanic, or you can't help that.
Like he was saying, I was gonna say that race and gender don't determine like your capability and how good you are at a skill or in a job. And some jobs require you to have certain education and experience, and that's why they have to discriminate for that.
Sierra.
I agree with her because, with both of them, and like when you gain experience, education, that makes you better at your job. Your race and gender doesn't make you good or bad at a job. It's your education and experience which is what makes you better.
Yeah. I hate to be repetitive, but I don't think from somebody's gender or race you can tell anything about them, but like from their education or experience you can say, hey, these people know what they're doing, or they've tried to better themselves, they strive to do things, they can do things, and I don't think you can get that from somebody's race or gender.
Or if somebody does use the gender race to kind of estimate the productivity, then we call that discrimination. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I was just like, unfortunately, like in a perfect world, you would want all your employers to like pick like who they're going to employ by education and experience. But I feel like even though we have laws, saying you can't gender and race,
Right.
that there's still some employers that say no, I can't have you make up, maybe you're not experienced enough or this or that. But in reality, because and you see that there's definitely companies that are majority white.
Have you guys, hopefully most of you seen that episode of That's So Raven, the old Disney show, where they, her and her best friend both applied for the job at the clothing store, and her best friend's totally incompetent and can't do it, but she gets the job anyway.
Yeah,
And
she dressed up.
she had the hat with the camera, and the girl's like, I hired you because you're white.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah,
I'm just
that,
saying.
like they
I was
copied
just
it.
saying, like I think it still happens, even though like the
They
laws are
can
prohibited.
say, oh, they weren't good enough, but
And I totally agree. Yeah.
It's sad that it
there.
happens,
Yeah.
but
It's very subtle.
Mhm.
It is subtle. You know?
Sometimes it's not so subtle because I watched a documentary about this guy, and I forget what class it was for, but he had a Spanish name, and he's just as white as I am. But because the employers never saw him, they just saw his credentials, and he had like great credentials, but because he had a Hispanic name, nobody would look twice at him for a year, and he finally switched his name to the American like version of his name, and he got responses. All he did was change his name, and he got responses within days where people were burning up his phone trying to get him to go to these interviews.
Like,
Actually, I had the similar experience. You know, when I was looking for a job, you know, I graduated from Chapel Hill with PhD in economics. My credential is much, I mean, among the peers, I was, you know, actually upper 25% percentile. But my other classmates who graduated same year, Americans, especially male, white male, they got much more interviews than I do. And when actually on the paper, the credential is not as good as mine, you know. And because when the first round is you just send out the CVs, they do not see your person, they do not see anything, it's just the papers. Because I have an Asian name, because they think Asians, you know, oral English is not as good as, you know, American. That's true. I mean, it is true, you know, and this disability is that, so there is a discrimination going on, but they have to actually, you know, every time you apply for a job, they ask you to fill out that form. It's Equal Employment Act. You have to fill it out because, you know, and there is some agency kind of look into that in each university, whether you have enough in the different races, different genders. But when I was looking for the job, you know, I feel very clearly discrimination against the Asian female. Yeah, and I had to apply for 300 jobs, academic job. Compare my classmate, American male, white male, they only apply less than 100 jobs. So it's, I felt that clearly, yeah.
like my English teacher, well, I guess, yeah, professor is the word. He was teaching us about like resumes and stuff like that. And he would give us examples of like how, say, an African American has like a African American type of name. Like you said, like they wouldn't even like look twice at the resume. But if you change your name from like,
I read an article on that.
yeah, if you change your name from like, I don't know, Tamika to Tamara, like you get responses like really quick. It's crazy.
Yeah, I from what I observed and what I heard, one is your name, the other is your age. There's some age discrimination too. Yeah, and they like to hire younger folks much better than the older folks. Yeah.
Question 5. Suppose you own a company. If you hire 10 men, each of them at $70,000 per year, your firm will be able to sell $1 million in output this year, and you will be able to earn $50,000 in profits, an amount that is normal for a firm of your size in your industry. Your firm's cost, such as for rent and advertising, will be $250,000 this year. Now assume that you could hire 10 women for $56,000 each, instead of hiring men. What would your total profits be if you hired the women and they were just as productive as the more expensive men?
Do you want to work this out?
Yeah, that's right.
You would have probably a lot more profit.
Yeah, definitely you'd have more, but how much more? That's what I'm saying.
Then
For men,
I guess the question I want to ask from here is, even sometimes the profit, I mean, this is not right that you hire women with less pay. But if let's say somebody is able to do that, why wouldn't anyone want to do that?
Because they can make more money. They can make more money.
But why wouldn't anyone want to do that?
Because they don't want to get arrested.
Yeah, they get sued if they got caught.
Well, even if like somehow you know they said, oh, the women are more qualified, right? I feel like some people are more ethical, like they know like what they're really doing, and kind of like that ethical morality kind of, you know, you said that plays a part, and I think definitely that would play a part. Like, okay, I know I'm taking away these women's money to make mine, and I know me, couldn't imagine, you know, but like, and I feel like other people would be like, no, I can't do that. You know, maybe these women are productive, so I'm gonna pay them what the men should.
But not everybody's like that.
Right. No.
But then
That's
there's
what I'm
one
saying.
in everybody.
I think once the women find out like we're getting paid less, then that could just start up like a union or whatever.
I would sue.
I would, but you know.
Well, yeah, but like I said, that happens all the time. It's just that it's hard to catch.
Do we want to work this out? No.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like 70,000 times 10.
Times 10. Why would it be a look?
Because there's 10 of them. That's a lot. That's a big number.
70,000 times
I'm gonna put that in the calculator.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at that. I don't know. I don't like numbers.
And that's for the men.
70,000, yeah. That's 700,000.
While they working this problem out, I want to ask you, have you filed any kind of discrimination in
And they
your life?
sold $1 million now, but
I'm pretty sure there has been, whether you've actually noticed it or not,
Maybe
like especially when it comes
traffic.
to getting a job for the first time, because you're young, you've got no experience or anything, and it's really hard to get people to hire you because you haven't got no job, haven't had no job before, and you're young.
it does kind of matter because
Mine is more like whenever
They're both
like
the same.
it's like with little boys and you try to help them in like sports, they just kind of laugh at you if you're a girl. Like at work, I was a camp counselor and I did sports camp, and the boys, until I showed them I was actually good at the sport, they would literally just laugh and like they wouldn't listen because I was a girl. So
Yeah.
that was my
Wrong
discrimination.
discrimination, yeah, wrong perception, yeah.
it does matter because you have to
I know me.
subtract it. So
I
Subtract what? The 1
in
million?
Tallahassee, there's Florida State, and then there's FAMU, which is a historically black college. And that's where I take my ACT, my SAT.
560,000.
And every single time I go in there, you know, they would crack down
Okay,
on the
now-
white people,
For that one,
and they
Like
kind of just like let
56,000
the
do
black
what, 1
kids
million
do what they
minus
wanted. And I was
56,
like, you know, like
560,000.
it's a standardized test. There's
Because
one way
then
to do
you
it
would
right.
subtract 250 from that, and that's
you
how
know,
you
and
get your
they
profit.
kind of I felt disrespected,
Yeah.
and I was just like I don't want to be here anymore.
Did
than
you do the
guys
1
want to be
million
here and
minus
have to
this?
administer this test.
That's how you.
But I just I
that's
was
how you
like,
get the 50 because you have to
you know,
subtract.
we try to live in a world where we say, you know, there is no discrimination and
So
we're all
subtract-
equal, but like,
1 million?
and sure, you know,
That all?
I feel like just because it was because of my race, it wasn't because I wasn't smarter or whatever.
Yeah.
I know, my dad has experienced some discrimination because of equal opportunity, where like with contracts, he can't win the contracts because he's
We end up with a total of 190,000 for the profit.
the only employee, he's self-employed, but because he doesn't have any women employees,
And then subtract the 20.
which doesn't make
That's
any
what it
sense
is.
because everyone is self-employed, and he
No,
they
so
have
you would
to
end
go-
up with
they have to go so many
190,000,
contracts to
subtract
women, so he
250,000
hasn't
from
won
this.
contracts, or
That was
race,
this-
especially in this area. They definitely favor other races. So he has experienced some, and also just age, as far as, you know, they don't want to hire someone closer, as he's gotten older, closer to retirement.
It's 440,000.
You were gonna say something?
There's one.
440,000.
Go ahead.
I mean, I looked at the contract.
That gives me 900.
This is pain.
190,000.
I don't do math, so
Anthony does math.
I can tell. Eager.
Oh, that,
What is this
my
one?
brother,
One.
his
That one
name,
you end up with.
I know, but what is this?
Michelle,
Oh, okay.
Because it's supposed to be Mitchell, but like
Uh-huh.
it looks like Michelle.
Uh-huh.
It's right. So it's weird for him to try to get a job. Because you see, because that's on his papers, and then he goes to meet them, and it's not Michelle.
Yeah.
I've had people tip women more as a waitress than men.
What's the difference?
Waitressing is seen as a woman's job.
So you tip women more than
$140,000.
the men?
You wanna know
I
something
heard
else?
Uh-huh.
If a woman has a bigger chest than 60 pounds, I'm not kidding. You think I'm lying? They did a
That's
study.
true.
Women with
It's
bigger chests
$140,000.
make better tips.
Huh.
It's a true
Well, I mean, if you work
story.
at Hooters,
The only
you-
thing they changed about this girl was her chest size. They gave her false chest, make her look like she had much bigger boobs. And when she they did that, she made much bigger tips for men and women than she
Some-
did previously.
Yeah,
Well, that's
sometimes even
because
prettier
people
girls
really
get
do
more
that.
jobs. Like, especially if it's a male boss, sometimes they'll like have the upper hand
Mm-hmm.
just because they're attractive.
Another example is me and my sister both dog sit.
Let's see, what's the
A lot of
profit?
times she gets more than dog sitting because she's a girl, but I'm more of a responsible person than
That's
she
about
is.
three. That's almost
And I
three
think-
times as much.
What?
Girls are seen as more
Wait,
Right,
no, that's
right.
almost 4
And
times.
it's, you know, it's a
Almost.
stereotype and it's a discrimination.
Maybe
When it comes to like me and my sister, like we'll fight for, because like my mom will be like, you're either working dogs or you have to get a real job.
That's right.
So I went ahead and I told people last year after I dog sit, I'll dog sit you for next year when you go on holiday break. And so when my sister went to go ask all these people, they're like, oh, your brother already asked me. And so because I knew that if me and her both asked, they want the older and the more quote unquote responsible person, even though she's not more responsible. So
Yeah.
That's like,
It's interesting to watch people's perception
Mhm.
about the individual when they
I'm
don't
trying to figure out how to
have
do
no
that.
idea
and
about
both
it.
of our parents, like our parents raised us the same. So there shouldn't be any.
That's right.
That's what bugs me.
And it's very hard to break that perception.
Right.
It's very hard.
and
Yeah.
like they don't want men working
wanna
in
do the
like
math,
church
Anthony?
nurseries or like in
Anthony,
Yeah, I
do
was
the
gonna say
math.
babysitting, definitely women.
Anthony's gonna do the math for us.
All right.
We're
Is it wrong?
The math isn't wrong. We're trying to.
No, you just have it written really different.
Anthony, he's gonna.
I'm not trying to be mean. It's just
You're trying
different. It's right, but it's different. Alright, I'm just gonna work. Okay.
See, that's what this is. He's been doing that to me for 4 years.
For 4 years?
Always correcting me. Always.
You guys have known each other for 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
Can we also go back
Do you-
over
do you want the- do you want to
the
calculate your
first
Anthony?
calculations after this so you can tell me how to actually calculate?
Okay, go ahead. I mean, he probably can help you guys in first
Okay.
calculation if you
Alright, we
want.
got this. You ready?
Alright, for this
Alright,
one.
so the business, no matter what, is gonna make $1 million, like sell $1 million of things. Okay?
What?
Because it says up here that the women are just as productive. So they're gonna sell $1 million no matter what.
Well, that's what we had up there, Anthony. We just wrote it weird. Gosh, Anthony.
Okay.
We
So-
had it right.
If you want to find your profit, you have to figure out how much you're having to pay. So,
Okay, somebody wants to. Okay, so what is that one?
Alright, the $1 million
Yeah.
is
Would you like to color code? I have colors. I came prepared.
$1 million is the amount you'll be able to sell. So, amount.
We call that revenue. We call that revenue.
Okay, that is your revenue.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
What
the
is it
revenue was
called?
like what you made,
So-
like total.
So revenue
No.
minus cost equals profit.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Oh, okay.
What?
Revenue.
Revenue. It's like avenue,
Okay.
but with it's like avenue with an R.
Yeah.
You can't ask if it's spelled correctly and then erase it before we can read it. It doesn't work that way.
Anthony.
And actually, this is important. This is what we call this is cash inflow, cash outflow analysis.
Right.
It's very it's very important thing, when you calculate profit in your company or anything, for accounting purpose as well.
Alright. In each one, your company up here is going to have to spend $250,000 between advertising, cost of repairs, and all that. So what would we call that? Expenses?
Yeah, you call that cost.
Okay. And then on this side, it's the same thing, because no matter what, you have to do that.
Yeah.
You gotta pay the light bill.
The only thing that's different in this problem,
To make it more specific, that's called capital cost. Capital cost. Because there's two kinds of cost, capital cost and labor cost.
the only thing that's different in this though is the amount that you're going to have to pay your employees. So with the men, you're going to have to pay $700,000 a year, right? 'Cause 70,000 times 10 is 700,000. So
That's your labor cost.
That's your labor cost, that's right.
and then the women, you only have to pay 560,000 because 56,000 for 10 people is 560,000. Oh. Okay, so to figure out the profit, you take your total revenue, which is up here, the $1 million. 1, 2, 3. And you subtract the capital cost and the amount you'll have to pay for labor. So, which would be if you did that minus the 250. 1, 2, 3 minus your 7
Or you can just add it all together,
Your
Anthony,
seven.
950,000.
would be, anybody,
It says it in the problem.
which would be
50,000.
50,000, which is what they have. So your total profit for if you hire them in is 50,000.
Actually, like a whole lot of profit.
Now, if we do it here, it's $1 million minus the 250, so that's 750 minus 560.
That's what we did.
Yes, but yours was like.
Anthony, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Oh, mine's not either because I have bad handwriting. And what does this equal? 190. So that's your profit is 190. So the difference here is $140,000, or if you hire the women, your increase is going to be 380% in profit.
Very good. I should hire you as
Hey,
my
give me
PA
markers.
for my principal.
Give me markers.
I forgot the color code. Oh well.
So yeah, y'all get where that came from. Thank you, Anthony, for putting the exact same thing that we had up there.
Okay, so what they're saying is if like your first calculation, like on the board is true, then that's what happens.
Mhm.
But they're saying that's not actually, it's actually more like women aren't working as much. They're not, so that's the difference.
Yeah, like this problem basically is not actually how the industry works.
Yeah.
This is legitimate discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Like other women were paying them less.
And this is how we tend to think it works.
Exactly, but it's absolutely not how it works in most cases. In most cases, women are, I wouldn't say choosing, but they are working less hours for their children or to take care of their house or things like that, where men are more flexible with it.
And also there's something I think is very important for any company culture, is diversity. You know, and we probably do not want all men or women or all younger folks. We want to have a diversified, and group of people. And so, because each different person have a different kind of strengths, then when you pull everything together, and it's going to make an impact. There's a Chinese saying they said, man and woman work well together. They compare with man, woman. But that's stereotype again. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think diversity is very important.
Last one. Okay. refer back to the last question. Based on the discussion in the chapter, what would you want to know about these women to satisfy yourself that they will be at least as productive as the men? List the key factors and explain briefly. Explain.
So you would first want to know, like, okay, is this woman, does she have a child? Right. That way, like, is she gonna have to take off work? Is she gonna become less productive? I guess that's one.
The number of hours they work.
They're willing to work.
They're willing to work, yeah.
Anybody else?
I'm willing to relocate or work in dangerous and hazardous areas.
Sarah.
Education and experience and their work ethic.
All that matters.
I have another question, like this off topic, but so we talked a lot about like them women choosing to go on the mommy track, but could it be like a hidden discrimination if women are forced onto the mommy track? So they have children, so a woman gets pregnant, has a baby, and all of a sudden, the basically, do employers assume that women will want to work less? Or not make them work less because they have children, when they would work more?
I think
If
that
they could.
would make it discriminate. Like, so you're saying, like, if somebody's applying for a job and, like, you see they have a child and you're like, okay, I'm going to pay them less because they have a child?
No,
Or what do you
if I'm working and I have a child, I could choose to go on the chapter assumes that women are choosing to go on a mommy track where they choose to work less hours and they choose not to travel. But do you think that women are also forced onto a mommy track where I have a child and so all of a sudden I don't get asked to travel? I don't.
Oh, so you're saying they're assuming that you're like, no, I have kids, I'm not doing this, instead of you actually do want to, but they're assuming it.
Yeah.
That you're not. Okay.
Yeah, I do think that happens.
Yeah.
And they make some job that extremely impossible for women to do when they have kids. For example, I'm just saying, could be let's say a dean's position. Okay, you have to be here every day, including the summer and the winter. Okay, and if with younger women, it's likely to get pregnant. It's unlikely for them to take the job. And so I do think some employer will do that. They make the job is so strict that the women who consider have a child, there's no way they can take that, and that is a hidden discrimination. Yeah.
Well, and kind of with maternity leave, wouldn't that be like, you have a child and you're given like 6 months or I don't know how long it is.
6 weeks normally.
6 weeks.
In Canada, it's a lot longer, and there's paternal leave too.
Do you get paid for that?
Yes.
You get paid during that?
And you get paid for that
That's
while
right.
you're on leave.
That's right.
But so would that kind of be like if they're including that?
Yes.
Okay.
Some company do not have that. Some
Right.
company is 1 week. You
Right.
have to get back to the job.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're fired. And that is a
That's
discrimination.
because you can't help that you have a child. Well, I mean, you
Right.
could, but like
Yeah.
you're having a child.
Well, I
so
mean,
you
like,
need
like the
more than-
recovery time, and I know like some
And-
people are
And that's why
C-section.
women attracted to the teaching profession because they have the summer off. You see, and then they say, okay, because the teacher's position, is have more women, so women more likely to choose this. We're gonna have to make it lower pay. So it's, that's the discrimination, hidden discrimination. Yeah.
Hey, we're finished now.
Do you want to show us how to do the other calculation? Or do you
Okay,
just
but
want to
which
forget
calculation? Which
The
one?
doctor one?
Yeah.
The first one?
The doctor's one with the.
This one right here.
Which one?
The example one, the position.
The one that you said you can't just.
Yeah, the male physician in that one.
Oh, okay. So what I'm saying here is, go back to that.
Here.
Okay, go back that. So when they say, women make only 80% of what men make, that is an average among all professions. Okay, so that is not a figure for the physician profession.
Okay,
So
that's
if
the
you-
nationwide.
That's right. So if you want to do the calculation, you really have to know the figure for this profession. And also there are so many specialties, and there's just so many factors. You really have to have the, accurate data, right data to do this calculation. That's what I'm saying here.
Yeah, like, so you're saying because women because a majority of women are in lower paying jobs, that makes their average go down comparatively? Like, say there's more women teachers than men, so the women's average would be lower than like the average of all males because women are in lower paying jobs. Is that what you're
So
saying?
I'm saying here is one possible explanation and for women to have a lower pay is because, they chose a profession that's likely have a lower pay, but then how the pay of this profession is determined, so it's like a chicken and egg question, so is it because women in this profession end up with lower pay, or is because something else? But I think is first, this is a very difficult question to answer. It is very difficult, but I think is there is a discriminating factor into it, but it's not all of it. And the reason why the teachers' pay is so low in this country is due to a lot of things. It is due to a lot of things. But is it because it's a female? It's because the majority teacher female that is one of the contributors? I say that's a possibility, but I do not know how much that contribute to the lower pay in the teaching profession. But I say that is a potential possibility. Yeah, a candidate for the answer. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm always very careful about what I say because you really do not know.
Okay.
Yeah. But then what's your question, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Comments?
So what did you guys learn from this chapter?
Actually, there's a lot of study on the difference between female and male, and one of the study is about why there's more female CEOs than male CEOs. Actually, that was the article in the Time magazine recently, and so what do you answer? What do you think? Just think loud.
Can you say that one more time?
Why there are more male CEOs than female CEOs? Male more likely to become CEO and the
Maybe because it demands more time to be a CEO. Like it demands more time to like develop and like all that kind of stuff.
So, go ahead.
The video suggested that a CEO track is usually inflexible jobs. So.
Yeah, so that is one of the potential reason.
I think another one is if you pay attention to these CEOs, when one of them retires, they try the grandfather clause. So you'll see one of the, I don't know, Bobby Joe, and Bobby Joe's gonna give it to his son or his grandson, depending on how old he is. And then, they'll continue and then they'll do the same thing. And a lot of times, because historically, a lot of white males were CEOs. And so, I'm not saying this is for all of them, I know for some of them, they just keep grandfather clause. They just keep bringing in a member of the family, which is predominantly a white male.
That's right, so that is a possible reason. And then, economists did a study. They figured out another reason. Another reason they did this experiment, among college kids in the university, just like you guys, they found out that actually with the same ability, same credential, or same capacity among male and female students, male students are more likely to participate or enter into a competitive environment than female. So given everything else the same, and the male are more likely to enter into the competitive environment. That's what the finding, shows, what the result shows. It's not the difference between, their ability, actually is their tendency to enter into that kind of environment, And then when I read that study, the instantaneously I think, okay, if this study is replicated in China, in the Chinese university, the result may be totally different. Because what I observed in Chinese university, actually female are more likely enter into a competitive environment, okay? And actually then I dig, and then I found a study. Actually, there's one paper by a scholar in Hong Kong. They did a study in a Chinese university, and they found a result that I believed. Actually, the Chinese female students are more likely, between their 18 to 25, more likely enter into a competitive. Well, it explains the result because if you look at entrepreneurial, and ventures in China, a lot of them are female-owned. But, then my next question is it still true if female enter into 30s? Because the experiment was done in a college environment, so all of the participants are, between 18 to 25, So, and I don't think anybody has done that study, but my hypothesis is like that. If when the Chinese female enter into 30s, they are less likely compared with, to enter into competitive environment compared when they were 18 or 20s, because they're more likely to have kids, stuff like that. So really, economics can be very interesting, So when I saw that paper, that study, I thought, wow, that's interesting. It's not its ability, it's actually the tendency, it's a willingness to enter into, And we just don't, female just do not get it kind of.
So it's something about like American, just culture or just our mindset, or I like. That's an interesting difference.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah. So this study actually is replicated in a lot of different countries. In most of the European countries, the result the same, and male is more likely enter into a competitive environment. Yeah. So.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I have nothing else to say.
Say like in a lower, like a country that that like has lower income and stuff like that. Like I wonder, would this trend of women being paid less still be like prevalent in those kind of countries, like countries where people are paid? Yeah, that's the word.
I think the discrimination, because the law in China is, I can only speak about China because that's the place I know. In the law, the Equal Opportunity Act is not really in place in China. So I'm 100% sure there's a lot of discriminations, but I feel in my head I feel that kind of discrimination is compensated by the female's willingness to compete with male. So instead of seeing less female in the workplace, less female in the higher position place, we see a lot of female. Actually, they have equal proportion of the female in a higher position, and compared with the male. So when you look at this figure, the person immediately think, okay, maybe there's no discrimination. No, that's not right. I think there's a lot of discrimination, but it's compensated by the other factors. And the women just work really hard, yeah. And the one thing I have to give credit to the Communist Party, and when I grew up, okay, and I have to say, when I grew up, I did not realize was any difference between male and female. I'm not talking about physiology. I'm talking about, the ability and the potential, because there was no concept about the gender discrimination or gender difference. The way when I grew up, as a girl, as a Chinese girl, when you grow up, you did not know, you could use your female charm to get the things you want. Like this, so that's what's happened in this country sometime, It's only after I entered into America, I realized, oh, there is this gender difference and there is this discrimination. Oh, and you can utilize some of your advantage to gain something. And that knowledge came to me only after I came here. So the way I grew up, I thought, okay, I have to work equally hard as guys, and I have no disadvantage or advantage as a lady. So it was very interesting thing to observe once I came here. Yeah. But it's
here is like as when you growing up as like a girl, like they try to say, oh yeah, you can do anything, but there's still that like.
But the reason they say that because there is this perception that girls are less capable. That's why they convince you, because there was this underlying assumption by a lot of people, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think culture can be different, can be very interesting thing to study. Okay, I do think this chapter actually is very interesting. Yeah. All right, so and good discussion, guys. Did everybody talk today? No, Corey said no. Do you want to say something, Corey, so I can give you a grade?
Yeah, I learned from this chapter because I feel like every chapter in this book, I go in thinking one way, and then it's like everything you thought was wrong.
Yeah,
Think a different
that's right.
way.
That's what I try to achieve in this class. To make you start thinking deeper, thinking like economist. I hope I have achieved that. To a certain extent. With you guys. Yeah. Oh, good. Now you can get a grade.
Can you do me a favor? If you check your email and and the email that I'm supposed to be sent you is not there, can you send me an email so I can get your direct email link? I've got to go take the final.
Even I learned something in this chapter. Like I thought, a lot of it was
Because
discrimination
apparently
based.
I have tried every link I can to get your email, and apparently none of them work.
Yeah. So you guys going to do the last one?
Yes. What chapter are we doing?
I think it's globalization.
I think it's 31.
Globalization.
What emails?
But do you have any other things that you would like to discuss?
I haven't looked at it. But we'll decide by tomorrow.